We are live.
You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
Detroit, City of Champions, it is a story that needs to be told. 1935, Michigan, Detroit, just some amazing sports history that people need to know about. And there's this trilogy of books written by Charles Avison. Hey, Charles.
How you doing, Jamie?
Excellent. And we got Tom Urich here. Tom has been connected to Detroit sports for a long time.
Longer than I want to remember.
And we're bringing this story alive. 1935. Just want to bring it to life, bring it alive, and we are gonna just share this with people. Hell, we're gonna make a movie out of it.
We're gonna make a movie. We already talked. Yeah, this is the goal. This is our goal, is to bring this story back, and not just bring it back, but we want to film the greatest sports movie ever made,
because it lends itself to being told.
So we have what we were talking about. For those, if this is your first time joining this show, we're talking about the greatest season to ever take place in the history of American sport.
Right.
And notice how easy it rolls right off the tongue. Super easy to say, right?
Yeah.
So we have the greatest season of all time. Why not make the greatest movie of all time?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's got every sport. It's got Joe Louis. It's got the Tigers, Lions, Red Wings. It's got Garwood and speedball racing. You're talking 33 championships, all this in the same season. You've got literally and I wrote the screenplay for it.
Yeah.
We've got a little image there for anybody watching the YouTube. This is the cover of the screenplay covers. What was so fascinating about this story, about like putting all the, you're trying to do the story arcs for everything,
right,
is this idea that every single great sports story ever told, like every great sports story that's ever been made, like the Bad News Bears, The Natural, like all these different sports movies, there is a component of every great sports story found in this, in some way or form, in this movie, or in this, in this story. And as I'm saying, like when you put it all together into one giant sports story, especially since the fact that it really happened, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like this is our objective, and I'm glad to lay it out for this show. We talked about the movie a little bit here and there, but from here on out, this is our goal, the movie. Yeah. So
I'm looking forward, and we've moved through the Tigers and the Lions. We talked about those amazing season, the amazing Ironmen with the Lions
Portsmouth
coming up,
Spartans and the Lions. Yep, that's how we found this guy over here, Tom Urich.
Well, he came from Portsmouth and he came up the Ohio River, and I'm right here in Detroit.
We found Tom, and he's now a regular. He's our buddy on the show. He's not
Tom, were you
anywhere.
floating down the Cuyahoga River? Is that how we found you?
One of them.
All right, fair enough.
I got excited. It all looked wet.
We picked Tom up, and we were like, Tom was a special guest for about 10 episodes, and now he's just a regular on here. He's our guy. So,
and then the grit of the Detroit Tigers, Mickey Cochran and that group of men.
Man, you're talking my language.
But we brought us to the Wings, and what was the title episode? Charles and I will talk ahead of time. It was like, what are we going to dive into today? Well, I'll ask, and he'll tell me what we're going to dive into. And so, what was the title you put on today?
Oh, this is a great title, man. So last week we just began talking about the rise of the Detroit Red Wings,
the birth of the NHL.
The birth of the NHL. We had to start right back from scratch in order to lead up to what we're going to begin talking about this week, which is Jack Adams. The name Jack Adams. And so we told you this episode, Jack Adams Part 1: Skate like the devil and fight like hell.
I love that,
because this is going to be fun. Jack Adams is the guy. Man.
I'm putting that on a T-shirt.
Yeah, why not? We're going to make a movie, right? No. We're going to make a movie, and like there's so many different sayings. Like Mickey's like, like, how you think you're going to do this year, Mickey? And then he's like, we're going to the World Series. Like that's a pretty good slogan too for a shirt with a Tiger logo, City of Champions. I mean, there's a few different varieties we could put out. I mean, it seems like some pretty good. We have a whole line of shirts with sayings on them that are 1935 related. So, but yeah, I love it. I love the concept. I love that. In this, you're actually going to see why we call this episode why this is the episode title.
Jack Adams. So who is Jack Adams, or do we need to lay groundwork there first?
Well, here's the thing. There's we laid a little bit of groundwork in the last show at the end of the last show, and the Jack Adams is one of the most important people in the history of hockey.
Oh,
I mean, he is one of the most important people in the history of hockey, and but as far as the Red Wings fans know, a lot of Red Wings fans might have heard his name, the Jack Adams that many people will know to this day, and we have a slide right here, Jamie. That's slide number 1.
Yeah. Okay.
So the Jack Adams that a lot of Red Wings fans, for those that was last week's slide. We got you got it. That's number 4, I think. Anyway, so it's actually that's still not it. There we go. Right, cool. So the Jack Adams that a lot of people there's basically 2 different Jack Adams. Well, there's really 3, but as far as for our intents and purposes for the show, there's the Jack Adams that people remember from the 1950s and 60s, which is the image that we have here, where he's kind of like he's an older guy. He's always smiling. They call him Happy Jack. They call him some of his nicknames. Jolly Jack, Jovial John, Genial Jack. I mean, he's always smiling.
Jovial John.
Yes, but underneath, this is a guy who had a passion to win that is matched by very few people. I mean, when you're talking about a passion to win, you're talking about the types that are like Mickey Cochran, Ty Cobb. He is at that level of winning desire. And so in that desire to win, by the time of the 50s and 60s, like, you see in the picture that we have on the screen is a picture of him signing a contract with Gordie Howe. He was a guy that signed. I mean, this is a guy that built the Detroit hockey all the way through the 50s and 60s. And there's another picture on the screen we have with Terry Sawchuck. And so there's the Jack Adams that was the 50s and 60s that he's winning Stanley Cups left and right. I forgot even how many he's won.
Oh,
he's won more than 4.
Well, with the Wings, he won.
Oh,
4.
in the 50s and 60s, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, he won a couple more before that. He won 2 in the 35, 36, and 30. He repeated back to back in that too. So I'm saying, like, and how many championships they went to, how many Stanley Cups they won. This is a guy that had so many championships that by the time, like, sort of like in the 50s and 60s. Like, he was he was almost like somebody that it's like a king that's got so much gold, like they just want more of it just because they don't even know what to do with anymore. Like, he was just, but at the same time, he was like, he sort of developed, one of the reputations that he kind of developed was that he was just like almost over the top by the end of his career about how much he wanted to win. And so anyways, there's the Jack Adams that sort of people remember from the 50s and 60s, which is kind of the older guy that built the archetype of these Gordie Howe Red Wings and that. But there's the Jack Adams that we're going to begin talking about, who is Jack Adams the beginning, Jack Adams the player,
right.
And that's what we're going to focus on today.
So he started as a player.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Not only did he start as a player, he started as a Hall of Fame player. Jack Adams is one of the best hockey players. He's one of when you're talking about legends of early hockey. Jack Adams was one of these guys. I mean, there's quite a few of these guys. But Jack Adams is amongst these. Like you're talking about baseball, like Ty Cobb, era type players in baseball. He was like in hockey to like that same kind of early 1900s that like Ty Cobb and Walter Johnson and these guys were, like the early 1900s. That was his era. Like he is this like sort of first class of the 1900s for hockey, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. You got the next slide real quick here. This is a little picture here that we have on screen that shows Jack Adams in his playing career.
No.
One more. Keep going. There we go.
That one.
Yeah, so those are once again he steals like T206 type cigarette cards, which I love, showing Jack Adams in 4 different phases of his playing career.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just going to kind of rattle off a few dates and try to expedite through a little bit.
Yeah.
So to try to get to some of the things I want to talk about. So born in June 14th, 1895 in Fort William, Ontario. At age 15, he plays for a YMCA. And his YMCA, they win 2 consecutive Church League championships. So he starts young with a couple of titles. 1912 to 1914, he joins plays for a senior hockey league, still an amateur, Fort William Maple Leafs. So in 1915 is when he first turns pro, and he hooks up with a team in Michigan, the Calumet Miners.
Oh.
All right, the Calumet Miners. So northern. This is I want to read a quote from, and I brought this book with me because anybody that's interested in what we're talking about, the history of Jack Adams is not necessarily easy to find.
Oh.
Like the books and all this stuff on them. But I brought this book to show. It's not the easiest book to find, but I absolutely love this book. It's called it's called If They Played Hockey in Heaven. I don't know if you want to see it. Can you see the picture? Yeah, there we go. So it's called If They Played Hockey in Heaven by Phil the Ranger. And it's the Jack Adams story, and it is an absolutely I guess I could have done a nice little JPEG image for the screen. Yeah. But If They Played Hockey in Heaven, the Jack Adams story, it's a tremendous book. It's a tremendous read. It's not the easiest book to find, but if you get your hands on a copy and you like what we're talking about, it's a tremendous story.
Sure.
Yep. So anyways, so the quote I want to read to you comes from this book, from If They Played Hockey in Heaven, and I used it in my book. Of course, I cited it to make sure Phil the Ranger gets his credit, and like I say, we're double credit him because we're talking about him on the show. So anyways, this talks about Jack's time with the it's a Northern Michigan Senior Hockey League in 1915 called the Calumet Miners. Okay, so this is the quote from Phil the Ranger's book. The first stop on Jack's initial trek to gain the reputation he needed to break into Major League Hockey was across Lake Superior in the small city of Calumet in the far reaches of Michigan's tundra-like Upper Peninsula. The Calumet team played in the harsh Northern Michigan Senior Hockey League. It was a cutthroat circuit where noisy fans were recruited from the area's timber cutting and mining camps. The players seemed to respond to the fans' cries for action and often played as if they had spent the better part of their day swilling hard liquor in a tavern and developing a hardened case of the means. It was a league described by the local press as one in which a player who can skate like the devil and fight like hell could rise to the top. Jack could do both and better than most.
Nice.
So notice how the segue from the title of the episode went right into that quote. I just had to use it. So anyways, so that you get the idea. Like this is, and I love I wasn't able to write that particular scene that Phil the Ranger conjures in your head with that in the movie, but I did in a sort of, but like I had that in mind when I did another scene, but the scene that it conjures is something cool. You know what I mean? Like you can just imagine this like early 1900s, Northern Michigan, mining town.
Oh.
These guys, these people are just there because they're just watching it. They're like, there's no TV cameras. There's no hype for this game. This is a local town. It's like, this is back in age before Zamboni machines. I mean, these guys are just out there bloodletting and hacking at each other with sticks and playing hockey. Yes, I mean, like you got in Jack Adams too. You just have to imagine. We don't have any footage, of course, but you have to imagine that in this type of environment, what type of a player you would have to be to survive in that. You see what I'm saying? You can't just be like, I'm going to be this slick handling puck wizard that's going to skate around the guys and not going to let them touch me. You have to be an absolute bulldog to fight that, to be in that. You know what I mean? You almost have to love that type of environment. Yeah, you almost have to be. I mean, this is a type of environment that you have to be. I mean, this is as tough and mean as of a league type thing that you have to be in. And for him to play in this league, and not only that, take a pretty big jump as we're about to see, shows you what kind of player he is.
Yeah.
All right. So his next step, he moves on to the Ontario Hockey Association in a town in Canada called Petersburg. In 1917-18, he plays for the Sarnia Sailors, which is Sarnia, just north of Port Huron. There.
Right across from the Blue Water Bridge.
Exactly.
There.
So Sarnia. So he's still in this kind of Michigan region. So at the end of his 1918 season, like I say, 1917 and 1918, he gets signed by the Toronto Arenas. And the Toronto Arenas, as we'll kind of see here as the story develops, was the precursor of the Toronto St. Pats, which is short for Toronto St. Patrick's, and then eventually the Toronto Maple Leafs. So this is like the very sort of precursor. But what's interesting about his NHL debut was that it was March 18th, 1918, which is coincidentally my brother's birthday, Curtis's birthday. So the NHL debut of the Toronto Arenas, this was the very first year of the NHL.
Oh,
the last year we talked about how the NHA changed its name to the NHL to leave that other owner behind.
yeah.
Just because they wanted to rid themselves of that owner they didn't like. But so this is the first year of the NHL, and it's also his debut is also the first game of the Stanley Cup Finals.
Oh,
So his very first debut comes in the very first game. So anyways, I actually have another quote by Phil Arranger to talk about that game.
Yeah.
All right, which is again going to show us this evolving character of Adams in the games and the way that people kind of viewed him in the hockey at this time. So on the night of March 18th, 1918, the chunky 22-year-old jumped over the boards at Jubilee Rink, the hometown slaughterhouse of the fearsome Montreal Canadiens, to take his first turn on the ice as the newest member of the Toronto Arenas. The Toronto squad was facing the Canadiens in the decisive game for the first National Hockey League championship, and the ink on Jack's contract was still wet when he got his first taste of NHL play by being hammered by Montreal defenseman Joseph Bad Joe Hall.
Welcome to the big leagues, buddy.
Damn, right on cue, man. Right on cue. The bewilderment of the more than 3,500 fanatical Canadian rooters stuffed into the Cracker Box Arena, Adams popped back up to his feet and began patrolling his assigned lane. Punish the arenas as they could, the Canadiens couldn't stop the stout-hearted kids of the arena manager, Charlie Quarry. When the butchering mercifully came to an end, Montreal had registered a 4-3 win, but Toronto took the NHL title by a virtue of 10-7 margin in total points scored. Adams was singled out by the Toronto and Montreal press corps as one of the stars of the game. He was heralded for his gutty play as he dashed up and down the boards with blood streaming from a half-dozen cuts over his eyes and ears. I must have knocked that kid down a dozen times, but he just kept coming back for more, a humbled Newsy Lalonde told writers. He's a tough one, and a good one, too. First game in the NHL. Newsy Lalonde, that quote by Newsy Lalonde was like, in his day, was like Ty Cobb of hockey. He was like that good. Newsy Lalonde was something special.
One question.
Yeah.
What position did he was he a left winger? Right
Forward.
winger? He was
He's a forward, yeah.
He was a winger.
Yeah, he's a winger. Yep. He
Okay.
eventually would move it. We'll hear in a second. He played center, but
Okay.
he was a forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Left wing. Yep. So there's Jack in his debut. So 1918, the very next year after they went to the Stanley Cup Final, the arenas played terrible. And the owner of the team, the team was basically going broke. It was like, and so the players are all getting sold off, and Adams was one of them. And he ended up getting sold off to the Vancouver Millionaires, who was run by, we mentioned last week, the Patrick brothers. Frank Patrick was the owner of the Vancouver Millionaires, and he was the one that bought Jack Adams. So as soon as he gets to the Vancouver Millionaires, his very first season, 1919 to 1920. He's an all-star. 9 goals in 22 games. They played a lot less games back then.
Right.
82 games now, 48 games in 1935, and 22 games at this time. So 9 goals in 22 games in his first year, all-star with the Vancouver Millionaires. All-star in his second year at the Vancouver Millionaires. 17 goals, 13 assists. All-star in his third year with the Vancouver Millionaires. You guys starting to notice a trend?
Yeah.
All-star in his third year. But this time he leads that PC that we talked about, the PCHA, which was the Western version of the NHL, West Coast version of the NHL at this time. They were a very competitive league. They were constantly sending teams to fight for the cup. So he's all-star in his third year, led his league in goals scored, 26 in 24 games. And also led the Millionaires to the Stanley Cup Finals, where he scored 6 goals in 5 games. Right, but despite that, his team lost to the Toronto St. Pats for the championship. So you can see he's a burgeoning star, all-star, 5 goals and 6 goals in 5 games. I mean, he's becoming a star, and so he's on his way. At one point, the very next year, his career is nearly derailed. Because his wife's uncle died suddenly, and his wife Helen. And just keep that name in mind, because his wife Helen, she's a major character in my screenplay, and for like very good reason. Helen is going to be a major character that's going to be played out in this story, in the evolving story of Jack Adams. But his wife Helen's uncle died, and Jack and Helen feared that her aunt, her uncle's husband, her uncle's wife, obviously, was so despondent over his death that she was like gonna die from a broken heart. That's how bad it was. Like that's how she like couldn't so. Anyways, so his wife wanted to basically moved in, and this is a town in Canada called Nepani. And so I probably butchered that word, but anyways, that I went with it. So anyways, so Jack wanted to be next to his wife, and this town is nowhere near Vancouver. It's like in the closer to Toronto than anything. Yeah. And so Jack retired. So Jack Adams retired from hockey at that point. And then see an opportunity to bring this star back into the NHL and out of this out from away from the West Coast. He has re-signed. His contract is purchased by the St. Pat's, by the team that just beat them in the Stanley Cup Finals. And so he rejoins the St. Pat's and plays 4 seasons with them, scoring 74 goals. He's a player manager of the 1925-26 team, and so after 4 years with the St. Pat's, he retires again, just because now his career is getting sort of on in years. Feels he's finished, but he's got one last hurrah, and this is a key component to the Jack Adams story. Yeah. Okay, one last hurrah, 1925-26. So this is 1926-27 is he is the beginning of 1926. He is signed by Ottawa to be an assistant coach and also a second line center. This is where he plays center in this spot. So do we have this other picture that we can put up on screen?
I do the team one.
The team one, exactly. Yep. So he signs on with the Ottawa, okay, right, and he wins the Stanley Cup in his final season. He plays one more year and he wins the Stanley Cup. And so we've got this team photo, and I did a little extract where you pulled his little picture out to show you, to isolate where he was in that team photo. Yeah. But what is key about this is that this Ottawa team is going to play a major role in just wait for the next however many episodes we do in this Red Wings. Yeah. I'm going to talk about this old Ottawa team so many times you're not going to believe it. Like it figures in. Like I can't really go too far into it. I can just give you a little teaser, I guess. The guy in the very top center, Hurricane Heck Kilrea, he's going to end up being one of the 1935 Red Wings that helps put him over the top for their Stanley Cup. The guy at the very bottom right hand corner is Donnie Hughes, and he's going to be the coach of the Detroit Olympics, which is the minor league hockey team of the Red Wings. And he's just going to be Donnie Hughes was like just a massive like talent development guy. And he's one of the like a trainer for the Ottawa Senators at this point. But like out of this team, there's 7 Hall of Famers on this team. There's 7 Hall of Famers, Jack Adams included. And just like that doesn't include Heck Kilrea, the Hurricane Heck, which is just like he was the fastest man hockey. The Hurricane Heck is going to be such a great story to tell. But in Donnie Hughes, that doesn't include either one of these guys, but it's got 7 Hall of Famers on this team. It's like some of the big, and that's what I mean. Like some of these guys, like I say, this team's going to play a huge role, not necessarily in the best interests of the Red Wings. Like this team, when it breaks up, eventually the Ottawa Senators are going to fold. But it's going to lead. I can't even tell you how big how important this team is. It's crazy, especially like the franchise itself. When the franchise was actually going to end up breaking up at the end of the 1934 season, prior to the 1935 season, the franchise finally dissolves and these players get cast off. And there's going to be like this massive controversy over the Ottawa. It's going to be crazy. Okay, like wait till we really start getting into some of this stuff with this Ottawa Senators team. But all these players in this team, like when they end up going off, like Jack Adams goes off as spoiler alert, goes off to become the Red Wings. Builds the entire Red Wings organization. And I mean, he's just one guy. Donnie Hughes, the Olympics guy. But you've got guys that are Hooley Smith is going to be like one of the best hockey players ever for the Montreal Maroons. He's going to be playing against the Red Wings in the longest game ever played. I mean, like there's Frank King Clancy's on this team. He's a defenseman, one of the best defensemen like ever. Like in his day was just an absolute megastar, Frank King Clancy. It's just the list goes on and on for the players in this team and the impact that they're going to have across hockey when they all start to kind of leave this year. So. anyways, I wanted to show that off. And so the final little slide we've got, we can bring this up here too on the screen, because after the season is over, Jack's last year, Jack then is going to take over as the coach of the newly found. This is where we let off. This is where we sort of finished off last week. We told the entire story of like the history of the NHL and how it led up to the birth of the Detroit hockey franchise. And if you were just to kind of take us back to that last week's show, we had the Portland Rosebuds and the Cougars, the Victoria Cougars, that were both sold off for $100,000 apiece to two separate American businessmen.
Right.
One went to Chicago, became the Blackhawks. The other went to Detroit and became the Detroit Cougars. And so that their very first year of the Detroit Cougars was which is what do we have it? Like 26-27. Oh yeah, 26-27 was the year that Jack Adams won that Stanley Cup in Ottawa. So the year that the Detroit Cougars' first year is also Jack Adams' last year as a player with the Ottawa Senators. Okay, so just as he's winning the Stanley Cup, the Detroit Cougars are having the worst year in the NHL. They're the worst team. They're literally the worst team in hockey. They finished up that year in 26-27 with a record of 12-28-4. They're 3 wins less than the next worst team. So they're literally the bottom of the basement. All right. And so that's just just think about this for a second. So Jack Adams so this is sort of, I want to give a little setup to kind of finish up, because this is pretty much where I wanted to go with this story today with Jack Adams. But just to summarize what the situation Jack Adams was coming into, okay, was so Jack Adams he's just come off a Stanley Cup championship. Right. He's at the highest of the high, right? And by the way, keep on, this was kind of just take you back for a second. Jack Adams' first year, and I'm not sure if I mentioned his first appearance with the Arenas, where he came up and was in the Stanley Cup finals, right? They ended up winning that cup. Right. So his first week in hockey is that they finish up as Stanley Cup champions. And then his last week in hockey, he's still, bookend championships. And so when he comes to Detroit hockey, he's taken over a team that is finished with the worst record in all of hockey. Detroit had no arena. There was no Big Red Barn. There was no Olympia Stadium. There was the Detroit was actually, they had to play their games in Windsor. The Detroit hockey team is playing in Windsor. They don't even play in Detroit. Oh, wow. So it's the Detroit hockey team that plays in Windsor. Okay. And then the best player on that first year's team, this guy named Art Duncan, was also their coach and general manager. And towards the end of the year, he left the team because the team was so awful. Plus he had a deal to sign with, at this point now, is the Toronto Maple. Toronto, it's not the Arenas, it's not the St. Pat's, it's the fully fledged Toronto Maple Leafs. They're finally the Maple Leafs by this point. And so Art Duncan, the best player on this Detroit hockey club, leaves the team, and now he's on the Toronto Maple Leafs. So like the best player of the worst team in the league is now gone too. So he doesn't have anybody. Right. And so he's got nothing. He's coming to this. He's coming to this team. When I say that, the nickname father of the Detroit Red Wings. Yeah. Okay. I've only used this title twice thus far in the show to describe anybody. Once when we described Frank Navin, the father of the Detroit Tigers. And the second was Potsy Clark, the father of the Detroit Lions. All right. Both of those two had the same thing in common with Jack Adams, where they came to this franchise when there was nothing. There was nothing. The Tigers were playing an old wooden, like barely a wooden ballpark, in the early 1900s when Frank Navin was a bookkeeper with them when he started up. Yeah. They had nothing. The Tigers were nothing at that time. They didn't even really start breaking out until they started playing baseball on Sundays. That was the only way they even started making money. Tigers were nothing at that point. The Lions, we already gone through this. The Lions came from Portsmouth. These guys, when they won the championship, one of the perks that they got was that they got a parka. You know, like that's how that's where they started. Their bonus was a team parka with the Lions logo on the back. You know, like they're like, you know, that nowadays they get a ring that's all covered with jewels and all this stuff, and they get these ridiculous bonuses, and they can basically make a living the rest of their lives, like as celebrities and endorsements, whatever you win a Super Bowl. Back then, they got a parka.
Good job, boys.
Yeah,
Stay warm.
That's what I mean. Like, that's where they're like, we were so happy to get our parkas, you know, like that's what I mean. Like, that's the age we're talking about. This is the beginning. Yeah. And that's what's so fascinating about what Jack Adams is that as we proceed forward with this story, Jack Adams is the beginning of Detroit hockey. He comes into a situation. He comes in you could not pick a more like, I mean, hockey is not all they have is basically a certificate that says that they have a franchise,
right?
Like there actually is a franchise in Detroit. That's pretty. They don't even, but the team's not even there. They're playing in Windsor.
Yeah,
like they don't even have anything, right? They don't have an arena. They don't have their team's awful, and they don't even play in Detroit.
Yeah.
It's the bare bones of an organization of this Detroit hockey.
And they were the Cougars at this time.
They were the Cougars, yes. And so he comes in, and so this is what Jack Adams comes into. And what he builds, I mean, again, spoiler alert, everybody's seen the 50s and 60s, what he built the team into with all these championships and Gordie Howe and all these, Ted Lindsay and them. Like, this, I mean, like, that's what he built them into. You know what I mean? Like, from literally nothing, a certificate in hand to, one of the great franchises in hockey. So that's where he is. And so I have one last little quote that I want to leave or wanted to read. And this is a quote about, and this again comes from Phil LaRange's book. And this is a quote about Jack Adams getting his job. With this Detroit team. So in the book, I'm just kind of noticing my own writing. Like to the reader, if you're actually reading the book, that's pretty much what I just said. How it leads off from this awful situation, like leading into to this is the job interview, so to speak. So in its first season in the Motor City, the team lost more. The team lost more than games. It also lost $84,000. The Cougars plainly needed help. While Ottawa was in Boston for the playoff series against the Bruins, Adams heard that the Detroit club was looking for a new manager to replace Duncan, who was giving up the reins to play for the Maple Leafs. Adams wasted little time in letting it be known that he wanted the Detroit Post. He took the most direct route. The late Frank Calder, then president of the NHL, was the man holding the most influence as to who would replace Duncan at the helm of the Cougars. Sauntering brashly into Calder's office, Adams threw his bid in for the job. I can do the job down there in Detroit and make those boys contenders, claimed Adams. I've been involved in this game for a long time, and I've played on 2 Stanley Cup champions. Mr. Hughes needs me more than I need him. I want the coaching job, Mr. Calder, he blurted. What do you think? Calder leaned back in his chair and surveyed the tense veteran with a critical and judging eye. It was a long minute in the life of one hopefully eager John James Adams. Jack, Calder finally said, I think you're just the man for the job. Bam.
Wow.
Mic drop.
Jack Adams. And then he took it.
He
got the job. He got the spoiler alert again. He got the job.
He's a legend.
That's what I mean. So this is the final one I wanted to show real quick. That picture for anybody. I'll describe it for anybody that can't see it. Listen to the podcast. The final picture where he's got the patches on his shoulder.
Yeah, that's been up.
That's been a lot of attention with that patch in the bottom of the corner. So this is something that I've never quite really figured out exactly. I mean, it's easy to understand what you're looking at here.
Yeah.
What we're looking, I'll describe it for those that can't see it that are listening to the show. So Jack Adams. This is Jack Adams when he his first year in Detroit is in the upper left-hand corner. He's wearing a sweater, and it's got 2 patches on it. He's got a patch that says Detroit Cougars on it, and that's on his left side, a big patch, and on his right side, he's got a patch that says World Champs 1926-27. So he's got this patch from his year in Ottawa,
right?
And so he's the coach in the other picture with it it's a color picture. And that's why I kind of blew the picture up, which shows the patch a little bit closer. And it shows him wearing that same sweater with that patch. And so, like, I wasn't sure. I guess the thing I was like, obviously, you see what it is. He's wearing a patch because he, for his championship that he's so proud of.
Yeah.
But it shows you how proud he was of that championship and how proud he was of that Ottawa Senators team. Like, that's a badge of honor to wear that thing. Like I was on the Senators, man, of 1926-27. I guess the question that I had is I wanted to know how long he wore that for, because and maybe like also his rationale, like, did he wear that? Obviously he was proud of it, of course, but I wonder if he was wearing, because I think it's kind of odd. Like if you're a coach for one team and you win a championship, are you going to wear, I can see maybe you wear the ring, I guess, but would you wear like this outward demonstration? Like,
well, when Babcock left Detroit,
exactly.
he's not wearing a winged wheel.
Exactly. Would you wear like a patch saying Stanley Cup champ, with all the years where, with he won it with the Red Wings. Yeah. And then he's a coach for the Maple Leafs. You see what I'm saying? I thought it was I've always thought it was kind of odd, but I also wondered that I also had like the sort of counter thought that maybe he wore that patch almost to say to his new players with just show them like, I'm a champion. You know what I mean? Like I'm a champion and I'm going to
This is where we're going.
That's where we're going. Exactly. Or so, like a motivating factor, or maybe it was I even had this thought too, which is the idea that that maybe he said he had something where I'm going to wear this patch until you guys give me a new patch to wear with the Detroit one on it. Maybe it was something like that. But that's one of the things, like, that's why I say I can't figure it out. Like it's obvious to what it is. I mean, it says World Champs 1926-27, which is the Ottawa patch. But like I say, I'm just curious about the motivation. It might not be. It might just he just wore the patch because it was a patch or whatever. But
there was a hole in the sweater.
Yeah, there's a hole in the sweater. So you want to like where Helen, we need something to fix this patch. I got just a thing, Jack. I got this. I got this patch that says World Champs on it. It'll go with the hockey theme you got going.
That could have been a little advertising, like you say, for the players.
Yeah. So that's what I've
incentive.
But I've never seen any sort of definitive answer. And it was really, there's nobody's ever even mentioned that he did it. I just saw those in photos. And I always just kind of thought it was cool because, like I say, as we go through the story and we really start to, when you see all the connections with this old Ottawa team, I just always like as it's so obvious with all these different connections that it's impossible to miss. And that's what I mean. Like, as you're reading all these stories and seeing all these old Ottawa connections, you know what I mean? Like when you're spending years researching all this stuff, like looking at newspapers and stuff, and then you see Adams every time he's wearing that sweater with that, with that year on, with this Ottawa patch. You see what I'm saying? It's just cool because it kind of takes you back into that era, like just to show, like, that team with the Ottawa Senators was so big, and that he's actually rocking the patch, So it's just kind of worth noting about this. So that's why I put that picture on there.
Yeah, dig it.
Yep. So, anyways, yeah. So this is the playing career, and Jack Adams will finish as Hall of Fame player, tremendous player.
So he carried him through the Cougars. Now, because we talked about the Red Wings didn't become the Red Wings until that year or the year before.
We're getting there. The whole next episode.
So he carried him through that and into
the bleak years.
Yeah, the bleak years, and that's next week. That's the next episode we're going to talk about is when Jack Adams and how he got to basically the point of when he first joins the Detroit hockey, the Detroit hockey franchise, the Cougars, and that the sort of like the years leading up to the Red Wings.
Were they the Victoria? Because some of the V.
They started out Victoria Cougars.
Yes. And then they brought over.
And they came to Detroit and were the Detroit Cougars. Yeah. And so, like, keep in mind, like, again,
I've met a few Detroit Cougars.
Oh, there you go. I bet, Jamie.
That's different.
We could do a whole show on that, I bet. Yeah.
That's a little different.
We could do a whole show on that, I'm sure. We'll talk about that after the show.
I love it. That'll be a nice appendix for the movie.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So this is, like I say, this is the primer for where we're going with this story, and like I say, that like and he is in the movie, the screenplay that I wrote, that Jack Adams, of course, is the central figure of the Red Wings, of the entire Red Wings story, and him and his wife Helen, she's a major component, as I mentioned too.
All right, so everybody, we just want to thank everybody for hanging out as we go through this just an amazing story that needs to be told. These things that we just dying to share these and unfold all of this and make it a thing.
Yeah, well, that's again, we're talking. as you're listening to the show, I mean, we're doing an entire show on one season in Detroit sports history. I think at some point it'd be kind of cool to branch off and talk about some other stuff, like when we get the main components of the story done, like talk about some other teams in 35s or in the 30s. Maybe some just Detroit history in general, that kind of branch off of this. Yeah,
we got some Detroit storytellers.
But I'm just saying, like, until that time comes,
we got lots of sports to cover.
That's what I mean. Like, this is just one of the books, man.
Yep.
The fact that we can do an entire show, not just one show, but an entire show format, like on 1 year in Detroit sports. Like, what other year in Detroit sports history or in any other year's history could you do an entire show based on?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's some people be having like Detroit history show or whatever, but we have an entire show on 1 year. Like, that's how big it is.
It's the greatest sports story ever told. I've researched it, and nobody's ever done this.
Nobody's ever done anything.
I mean, it's when I did the radio and did my little part, I researched it. And I made correspondence all over it. They all said, huh?
Nobody's ever heard of it. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, but it's true.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I mean. When it dawns on you that, like, there's people that maybe are listening to the show. There's people that maybe you hear the fact, you hear like, oh, I didn't know that. 3 teams all won their first championships in the same season. That's kind of a cool, that's a bar trivia question or whatever, right? But when it actually sinks into your brain, that there's 33 championships. Like, are there even that many sports? I mean, there's like 33 championships. It sounds ridiculous. How is it possible? 33 championships in one season, including all 3 majors, all 3 professional sport majors at this time. You have Joe Louis in boxing, the speedboat. Wait till we get to Garwood. The speedboat, the Harmsworth Trophy, which is what Garwood raced for, was literally the most prestigious and coveted trophy / championship in the world at that time.
Right.
Entire governments would, like the British, the British used to spend like their government money their Navy would be trying to send ships to Detroit, to boats, to beat Garwood. They wanted the title for speedboat racing, because the British at the time had the title for the land speed record. They had the title for air, the Schneider Trophy for the air championship. It's like a maneuverable plane flying championship thing. So they had land title and they had the air title. They wanted to be land, sea, and air.
Yeah.
And that's what we're saying. Like, wait till we get to that. And the Detroit held that too.
And Garwood was like, I don't think so.
That's what I mean. Like, so that's what I mean. Like, when it sinks in just how big this was, when it finally sinks in, like there's sort of a point. Look at Tom. I love Tom. Look at Tom. Tom's here. This sunk in for Tom a long time ago, and Tom has been beating this drum for most of his life. Yeah. Right? When it finally sits in, it becomes like, it's not only is it that you're just like, oh my God, this is like the most incredible sports story. It's like almost not even real. It's so big. And when it sinks in, Jamie launches an entire show around it.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I spent 10 years writing books on it. You know what I mean? So for anybody out there, when it sinks in, the magnitude of just how big this was, then that's why I can't wait. When we get this movie out, there's gonna be a lot of people that sees, like, they're gonna be watching this just going, oh my God, it's just a nonstop cascade of championships.
Hey Charles, a one word comes to mind from the series, the trilogy of books you have, and the word that comes to mind for me is testament. Because it's just a testament to the year of 1935 and what Detroit did in that year. So
it doesn't sound real.
It doesn't sound real. Like, when somebody says like 33 championships, you're being a little bit dramatic. Dude, I will post on this thing. I will go through this thing and hold it in front of the camera. Look at this. Here, I'm just going to hold a random page up. Number 3, Eddie Tolan. I counted them back. Like, I already assumed the first 3 with the first 3, but I counted these things down and I listed these things in order, is so that there's no mistake. I showed all the factual evidence for every single championship. Number 19, Herbert Mendelson. We go through all the way through this thing, man. Number 29, Newell Banks, the world checkers champion. Dude, it was a legit, and he was a superstar in his era. He played checkers and chess blindfolded and he was that good. Like,
one of the great stories was Walter Hagen and Bobby
Detroit.
Jones.
Absolutely.
That is probably a year's of work just there.
Yeah, Walter Hagen.
That happened in Detroit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, Hagen, his claim to fame in 35 was the Ryder Cup. He was the captain of the Ryder Cup champions in that year, and he was the first club professional, Oakland Hills Country Club. He called the Detroit Athletic Club the building he was more familiar with than any other building in his life. He wrote his autobiography in Cadillac. You know what I mean? Like, this Hagen was a Detroit. I mean, he wasn't born here, but like a lot of people, these, in the cities, they move there. They have residences there, and they call themselves a Detroiter. And Hagen migrated all over the world for most of his life, but he represented Detroit at this time.
He was born here.
Yeah, I think that's chapter 2, verse 33 somewhere.
Yeah, it's in there. So, anyways, that's what I'm saying. So, but it's like the list of championships, that like it's staggering. The thing when it's like, just imagine today if a single city won everything. 30, like the World Series, the NFL championship, and the Stanley Cup. It hasn't happened again since 1935. A bunch of cities have gotten close. I got interviews by the Boston Globe. They called me up asking about, because a couple years ago they were the Lightning versus I think it was the Lightning versus the Bruins or whatever, right. And there it was Game 7, and the Boston Globe's actually calling me up asking about looking for a quote about what it's going to be for Boston to get 3 championships. And I'm like, you haven't won it yet. It's not, you haven't done it. I mean, nobody's done it since.
Yep. I'll tell you a cute story. Down in Naples, there's a Foxborough restaurant that's all Boston. And I went in and I had a sign over the bar. It said City of Champions, 6 champions.
Yeah.
So I brought the manager over and I said, that sign up there. Oh, yeah. I said, Boston, we've won 6 titles. It was unbelievable. I said, well, I come from a city that won 24. He said, well, that's impossible.
Nope.
So I had the little piece of paper that Abe Kushner had, and I took it and showed it to him. He looked at it. He couldn't believe it. And I went back to the restaurant about 5 or 6 days later. The sign was down. He came to me and he said, yes, Detroit is the city of champions.
Well, Tom, you bring up sort of a point, because if you do a Google search, I said it in my first book, you do a Google search for city of champions, like you don't type in Detroit, you just type in city of champions. And there's like 71 million hits. Every city out there lays claim somehow. Pittsburgh had a big run in the 70s, so they claim city of championships because of the Steelers and the Pirates and all this. Boston claims to be city of champions because they won a bunch of championships lately. All these different. There's every city's got a claim to city of champions in some fashion or another. But nobody has done anything like they did in 35. And
a plaque with all the governors,
and this is what I'm saying,
and the president.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Detroit.
That's what I'm saying, is that in 35, this is, again, spoiler alert, getting a little ahead of the story at all, but we get to all the way to the end of this thing, and we're going to show that at the end of this season, there was a plaque commissioned by, I think it was a Grand Rapids company. That's what it says in the back, but it was commissioned saying, Detroit is declared the city of champions. On the top of this plaque, it's signed by every governor in the country. There are all these little wooden tabs that were sent out to every governor. They signed them. And then the top, so they were all these little tabs were affixed to this big wooden plaque. And the plaque is huge. It's like 6 feet tall. It's ridiculously huge. And in the top tab is signed by FDR, by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So the president of the United States declaring Detroit the city of champions. So the question I have is, for all these cities that declare city of champions for their own city, where is our governor signing a plaque that calls them the city of champions?
Right. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, this was official, not legislation, as I'm getting a little bit carried away, but you know what I mean? Like, this was recognized by everyone in the country as like the city of champions. Yeah. And really, the definition was sort of established at that moment. As if you're going to recognize Detroit as the city of champions for this sporting achievement, well, that sporting achievement was a series of championships in a singular year that has never been matched or ever will be matched.
American champions.
So that's what I'm saying, though, is that particular title. There's a lot of things that people can be proud of the championships they win. They can call themselves whatever they want. But when it comes to that particular title, City of Champions, the case that we just laid out here, that I just laid out here in the last minute or so, that's a pretty strong case to argue for that title, right? It's a pretty strong case. Yeah. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, but what I'm saying is that we're the only ones making it, Detroit and Michigan, like it's one of these things like this belongs to us. This is a title that's ours. And, if people knew about it and actually stood up about it and like kind of like, learned about it and cared about it and got into it a little bit and we made a movie about it for God's sake, then it would still be ours. And it wouldn't be, just cast around with every time, everybody that wants to use the title, go ahead. You just want a putt-putt championship. You're the city of champions now.
That's what Abe Kushner told me when we had the celebration of the 50th in 1985. He said, Tom, it's fading. Do something, save this, because this will never be repeated again, ever.
Yeah.
And he's right.
That's what I mean.
He's right on the money.
And he's right on the money because you go out this, like, I'm telling you, it's like, I would say it's probably, if you just like, now it's a little bit more because there's, I've been doing this for 10 years and you can see it, like I've been doing art shows. And so I've been telling people, I've been selling books, like I think we said it a couple of shows ago, even 4 years ago, I did a conservative estimate. It was 80,000 people I've told the story to, person to person. So we've been getting it out there to a certain extent. But it's, I could easily make the case that it's one, maybe I would say if you were to interview 100 Detroit sports fans, you would find probably like when I first started, it was probably 97 or 98 of those had never heard of this. Oh, yeah. And now it's probably closer to 95 out of 100 that have never heard of this. Well, like maybe there's a couple extra every once in a while. You see a few people, maybe 90, maybe we put a little bit of a dent in it, but by and large, it's still completely unknown.
Well, wait till the movie comes out and they'll be lined up and
absolutely.
That'll be perfect.
But we got to get there. That's what I'm saying. That's why the show.
What I'm looking forward to, Champions Day is April 18th.
Yeah, we're gonna
this year around Champions Day, if we don't do it on the 18th proper, it'll be that week or so. We're gonna do an episode with that plaque you were talking about.
Oh man, that's gonna be cool. It's at the Detroit Historical Museum.
I'd like to see that.
The story of the plaque itself
is amazing.
Amazing.
That's what that episode will be. So coming up.
It's an amazing story.
So people listen to these whenever.
Can I ask where is the plaque? Is it at the Historical
Museum? Yeah. No, we'll get to it.
We'll get to the story of the plaque.
Let's talk about it now. We got time.
Well, maybe somebody might want to go down to the Historical Museum.
It's at the Historical Museum. In the meantime,
a little prelude.
Hold on a second. We got to leave them with this. So here's the thing. We can't leave them like that. Leave them hanging like that. So you can see it at the Historical Museum
like this story.
But
it was lost.
Yes, exactly. The whole story is the plaque itself represents the entire city of Champions.
It's a metaphor for it,
because the plaque was completely lost.
Yeah,
and it was found at the Armada flea market, sold for $30 to somebody. It was waterlogged and stained. It had to be completely rebuilt. Like this thing, and it traveled across. It was found in 19. I think it was 80. I got to look at the book. I think it was 83 or 85. Right. When it was found, and then it was turned over to the Historical Museum and put in a box and put in their archives, and it sat there from like 85 through 2014 or something. Whenever I found, where we found it,
85 was the 50th anniversary.
Yeah, but I don't remember if it was that exact same thing that certain year, but it was around that point. But I'm just saying, like that's like if you want to read the full story, you can buy the books, of course. Yeah. For an easy low price, like $49.99. Like what I'm saying,
cityofchampions.com.
But I'm just saying, when we get to it, we're going to take a much deeper dive into it. And in fact, I'm going to try because at one point I met the guy who found it.
Oh, awesome.
So it was telling me the story,
Bring
and
it back.
That's what I would love to. So we're going to try to find him and see if we can either get him on the show because I think he was from Arizona. He's from Michigan, but he was living in Arizona last time I talked to him.
Pull him in on the StreamYard. All right. So if you've been listening along, we appreciate you being here. Detroit City of Champions. That's the name of the show. That's the name of the books. It'll be the name of the movie. And it's also the name of the website. City of Champions, DetroitCityOfChampions.com. Again, subscribe, leave a comment, and we appreciate you, gentlemen. Thank you. And we'll see you next time.